I want you to imagine with me a face that is so entirely evil, so wholeheartedly consumed and a product of evil, that if you were to look upon it, that it would be the final calamity, destroying you, both in body and soul. Just as there is one face which is above all faces, there is one in the heavens, above all worlds, that if you were to look upon his face, it would bring you irrevocable joy, a joy and peace that could never be taken from you. There so is also a face beneath all worlds that is so wholly evil, and I mean holy with a W, that it would be the final calamity. I want us to talk about evil and how it masks itself. This face that I'm talking about, you might think of it to be something which is gross and terrible in the way that you might watch The Exorcism there with Linda Blair's the head spinning around. But C.S. Lewis, he describes this reality of evil as being something which it is not even an attempt to defy good or the goodness itself, but instead it ignores goodness to the point that it can annihilate any connection. And C.S. Lewis, he has a book called The Perelandra. And in that book, there's a main character who goes to another world, and he's kind of living out the scene from the Garden of Eden. There's an Adam and Eve figure, and then there is a serpent figure who's actually a man that this guy Ransom used to know. And now Ransom is a new fourth person here in the scene of the garden, and these are the only people in this world, and his job is to stop the fall from happening. And when he first encounters the true nature of the serpent figure, he's standing there looking at the man, and he realizes that something about him has become disfigured. He's not really the man he used to know, even though the features, they kind of look like that. And the man stands before Ransom smiling, and he realizes he is possessed by the devil. And as he looks at his smile, he says, it was a devilish smile, but I had never taken those words seriously before. All attempts at evil I had ever seen before, they were half-hearted attempts at evil, but this was whole-hearted evil. And as he looked at the smile, it wasn't at all sinister or anything that you might expect, but instead it had a striking similarity to innocence. And the smile, it was welcoming. It was welcoming all men, as if you would just become one with this smile, then everything would be in agreement. There would be no arguments, no divisions. But yet, it was terrible. It was wholehearted evil. And even in hell, one of the greatest torments is to look upon the face of the devil and to see the devil smile. That would be the final calamity. Now, no child would have an issue understanding this. Children know they avert their eyes when they see great and terrible things. They are terribly afraid of them. And even adults, too. We know that there are things which are so unsightly to see. But I want us to realize that the more holy and completely evil something is, and again, that's holy with a W, the more it is going to mask itself as innocent. And a child would have no problem understanding that there is something which, if you just looked at it, that would be the final calamity. There's a biblical case to be made for this. If you would read out of the Gospel according to St. Matthew, chapter 6, verse 23.
But if your eye is unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness?
Yeah. That scripture, it tells us that the more great and evil is, the more enormous and all-consuming it is, the more you might think it is light. And that scripture tells you, when you look inside yourself and you think there is light, you are convicted that there is light within you. If that light is actually the darkness, then how great, how consuming is that darkness? Let's go now to the Gospel of Luke, if we can, and look in verse 35 of chapter 11.
Therefore consider whether the light in you is not darkness.
And again, that scripture reminds us that it is quite possible for the light to not be really the light, but it to be darkness, masquerading, fake, going out lying. In our world right now, we are filled with fake virtues, counterfeit morality, Trojan horse morality. It comes pretending to be something good, something to be in your own interest. But it's wicked. It's evil. It's of the beast itself. You look there in the chapter 6 of Nehemiah's memoir, which is where my sermon's going to be today. There are false prophets who come to Nehemiah. They come to him and they say, "Oh, Nehemiah, there are those who want to kill you. There are those who want to kill you even this evening. So therefore, come, let us meet together in the temple and close its doors, that you may hide there." You look at that, and it is one of the most sinister lies that you could ever imagine. It's not a lie that you can hold accountable easily. You have to ignore it. You have to call out. You have to just blatantly say it's a lie. You can't negotiate with it. You look at that and you would say, well, Sanballat and Tobiah, they do want to kill Nehemiah. The entirety of chapter 6 is really Nehemiah's dealing with Sanballat and Tobias. They want to kill him. So when the prophets come and say that, they're saying something which is connected to truth. And Sanballat and Tobiah, they want to kill Nehemiah that evening. And one should turn to God when they're in a moment of great distress. But even though this prophecy, you could look at that, and if your eyes aren't correct, like it says there in Matthew 26, if your eyes aren't healthy, if there's something wrong with them, and they're in verse 6:23, you could be fooled into something which is a great and enormous lie. And so how do we get through this? What is the antidote to this? Scripture gives us that too. Nehemiah, he was motivated to serve God, not to serve the narratives of those who bring him the news, not to serve the narratives of those who came in prophesying to him. What those trying to get him to change his course of action, what they were asking of him was to do something shameful, to do something that was of self-interest alone. And it would have been more powerful than just killing Nehemiah. If they killed Nehemiah, people would have carried on in his revival. But if they get Nehemiah to do something shameful and sinful, well, that ruins the inertia of his ministry. That ruins his credibility. And he's dead. He can't do anything about it if he has died. But what they're trying to do when they try to lure him into the temple, it is greatly diabolical. But yet it is so masked in truth that you can't easily hold it accountable. You have to be motivated by God, and your eyes have to be transformed by God. So as we wrap this up, I want us to keep in mind that the greater an evil is, the more it is going to mask as truth. But you can't sort it out. If it's asking you to do something that's purely in your self-interest or something that is dishonorable or shameful, you can know that it is of evil. God never asks us to do anything shameful. He never asks us to lower ourselves in a cowardly fashion. There is true humility, which is commanded of us as Christians, but that's not cowardice. That's not living in fear. That's not utterly shameful. It's not a Trojan horse meant to take us to a place of destruction, which is what the false prophets in Nehemiah want. They want to take him to a place of destruction, to a place of great evil. So on that, we'll wrap this up. God love you, and have a blessed day.